So here we are. It is September 17th, 2024, and this is a sort of our second class of EC&I 832. And if you recall last week, we started with some, let me go here. PowerPoint is a background. That's not what I want. Hold on here. We're going to share my screen. All right. So this is where we are. We're going to kind of think of what we did last week. We started off with those stupid icebreakers. We're going to try the stupid icebreakers again. I tried a little funkier tool that I want to play with. So it's sort of a dual purpose activity. We'll spend a little bit of time just kind of going through the week in review, and I'd love to hear from you in terms of what went well, what didn't go well, what you learned maybe from some others, because I saw some of that happening, and then talking about just really how again, everybody needs to sort of own their own learning and their own style, and fits in with the fact that almost all of you are have full-time jobs, and so making sure that this fits with your lifestyle and so forth. And I want to talk a little bit about managing your blog, some things that might be helpful for you as you kind of continue to utilize that, not only for this course, but I see it's something that's sometimes, not always, occasionally used in other courses as well. And then we have a special guest, Mike Ribble, sort of one of the really kind of, I don't want to say founders of digital citizenship. That sounds a bit too magnanimous, but somebody who's very, very been in this space for a long time, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Mike. He'll be popping in, I think, sometime in about the next half an hour to join us. All right. You need your phones. Get your phones ready. I think I got this set up correctly, but if I didn't. So again, if you remember the last, for those of you that weren't here or forget, I'm going to give you a little bit of a prompt. The goal is to come up with the most absurd answer. Okay. That the more absurd, the more ridiculous, the better. And in this case, there should be, I think if I did it correctly, there'll be an opportunity to actually upvote once the answers are there. So let the answers kind of come in. And once you see, a majority of them, 10 or so, then you can go ahead and choose your favorite of all the ones that are submitted. All right, let's try it. So the first one is, I guess I've got it set up to a web poll. So you could do it with your web, with your phone, either way. So I guess I was wrong in that I set it up. So this is me just learning again. So and I'm going to just go to my as well. So it's pollev.com/D Sharesky. What happens when you get there? You agree, whatever, you can just put your name on there, whatever you like, pseudonym. All right. Then you should see, if you did it correctly, you should have that on your phone, and you can respond to that question. Everything I have, I owe to, and again, the more ridiculous the answer, the better. Dean Sharesky, so somebody's sucking up big time, good for you, but you probably don't want to upvote that one. That's just too ridiculous. Okay. God, there we go. Oops, now I flipped around here. Sorry. You got to stay within the thing here. All right. So there you go. My dog, my bank, these are getting good. So take some time. And the new ones seem to come at the top. So everything out of white privilege. Okay. And you can also vote on your phone as well. So it's probably easy. Well, that's actually where you are voting. So have a look. Load 4 more responses. So I'm all caught up. So I got all the responses in there. Everything I owe to, and I'm going to pick the one I'm most absurd. I don't know. One more response, all caught up. All right. So the winner is my bank. Whose was that? Everything I owe, because that's very clever, right? You owe your bank. Get it? So those of you, I didn't actually pick that up until I just said it out loud. Whose was that one?
That was mine.
Okay, you get 1 point, and for however you're keeping score, it won't matter. All right, let's go to the next one. That was our warm-up one. All right. Getting old is not that bad. It only hurts when I. This could be music there. Okay. Load them up. These are good. These are good. These are good. We have two Emma Wake, so that's going to be tough to split that one. But if they win, we'll give you both the ones. So have a look. Okay, one more response. Don't vote until you have had a chance to see everybody's, even though one might strike you. It only hurts when I don't have. Yeah. Okay. All right. Everybody think too hard. Think too hard is at the top. It only hurts when I think too hard. Okay, I'm gonna give that winner. Who is think too hard? Our winner
That was
winning.
me again.
Oh my goodness. Alicia came to play. Okay. This is good. You don't know who they are. All right. Next one. I've tried all my summer clothes, and the only thing that fits is I'm not getting my. Is there a reason why no? Can anybody not see this one? Okay, that I don't see it either. So let me just see what I did here. This is troubleshooting. All good here. Did I not activate it? That could be the case. Activate. All right, now it's there. I'm just going to be happy if I can get one vote. Okay, they're coming in. Is that it? All right, maybe you can vote now. Got to be fast at this game. My Snuggie. Okay, who's a Snuggie? Don't you dare say this, Alicia. Don't you dare say
I
this.
was a snuggie.
Okay, Josh, you're on the board. You have some competition now. Here we go. Next one. Apparently, blank is not an appropriate response when your supervisor asks about your goals for the year. I was just trying to be honest. Okay. Oh, surviving just etched out. Staying employed. Who had surviving?
That would be me. Oh, we died now. We're
Okay.
tied.
You can't, hey, you can't help it if you're a hilarious person. You just cannot help that. Or maybe just know the crowd. All right, let's keep going here. Sometimes I'll just sit around and wonder if blank misses me too. I still haven't gotten one vote on any of mine yet. All I want is just one vote. Well, this one got spread around pretty good. My bed is the winner. Whose is that?
That was
Brittany?
me.
Very
Yeah.
good, Brittany. Awesome. Okay. So we've got more than just one funny person or two funny people on the class. We've got a couple. I don't know how many more we have left. This is the last one. I finally reached the age where blank can ruin an entire week. Okay, and we will, oh, sleeping wrong, just Edge. Who did sleeping wrong? The winner is? Yeah, there you are. Okay. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. All right. Okay. So listen, I don't know if we're going to do this again or not, but if we do, we're coming after you. We're coming after you hard next time. So very good though. Very good. Let me stop sharing. All right. So again, part of it was like I've used poll everywhere. I used to use it quite a bit, sometimes just in presentations, and now sticking it inside of. Does anybody use any kind of tool like that with your kids, like Mentimeter, any kind of polling tool of sorts? Who does? Tell me about which tool you use and how you use it. Miranda, you nodded.
I'm very boring, but we do it for our learning improvement planning in our staff meetings, and we just try to keep it a little bit fun and voting, and people like to use their phones and throw in some silly stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, Kahoot is probably the one that people mostly use with kids and stuff, but I just find like sometimes there's a little more flexibility with some of them. So Anna, use Mentimeter. How do you use it?
Yeah, we use it during Christmas party when we're planning about our games, our menu.
Yeah, school-wide Kahoots. I mean, listen, like, I mean, you can overdo it for sure, but I mean, it is something that kind of you can do sort of quickly or whatever. So poll everywhere. That one's been around for ages. So that was way before the Kahoots of the world kind of came along, and now there's quizzes and a whole bunch of other competitors. But I like being able to put it into a slide deck as well. So that's kind of another reason why I like it. And then actually I'll use, depending on what the kind of question is, if I'm going and speaking with multiple audiences, I can actually sort of pseudo data collect a little bit. So it has that kind of potential as well. All right. Week in review. So before I kind of dive into anything specific, anybody want to share kind of how their week went in terms of the course and sort of navigating things, maybe something they found useful, interesting, helpful, other things they were struggling with in terms of, and we'll sort through all those things out. But I just, again, my goal is to make sure that starting this week, people feel very comfortable in the way they're engaging with content and with people in the course.
I don't know if I need to raise my hand, but I have a question.
Yeah.
The readings and viewings for the week, they're meant to be done after the activities that we do? Or before?
Yeah, and this week was, and Taylor messaged me about that too. And this week was slightly confusing. So again, that's all part of the learning. And it's part, it's part of my learning today. So if you'll see today, I posted some stuff. I don't know if I did this today or I think it might have been last night. Posted some readings. So the idea would be that this week, along with sort of the guest and the readings, this is this week's consumption stuff. So this is a good time to talk again about what I think is a potential study process that you might think about. So I would plan to spend, the next 2, 3, 4 days reading, consuming, watching, whatever. And again, I don't expect people to read and watch everyone. Like if you'll notice too, I asked Mike to send me some readings that he thought might be helpful. So that's what I have on the first part. And then the stuff below are things that I've added. And this is kind of getting into how we're going to do the content catalyst portions of it. Like, and I'm trying to model it a little bit the first little while. So I'm figuring it out as well. But I think essentially posting those, and then that's the fodder from which you're going to write about this week. So after you've had a chance to watch some stuff, to read some stuff, to listen to the presentation today, hopefully that will, give you something to think about that you want to respond to, or something that you want to react to. And obviously you pick things that, either one you very much agree with and finally, yeah, this is somebody who's sort of speaking my mind. It also could be two, somebody like, I think this is a terrible idea and this really bothers me. Or three, not that these are the only three, but or just something that's like, I really don't get it. Like, I'm really struggling with this concept because I see both sides. It's a complicated topic, whatever that might be. To me, those are sort of three pathways. There's probably more, but I would say those are three plausible pathways moving forward in terms of what you want to spend your time writing about. And so that's why probably posting to your blog for most people won't happen until, the latter part of the week and or the weekend. I know for some of you, you've carved out time Saturdays and Sundays for the course, and I completely get that. So in that sense, and I see Mike's in the waiting room, so I'm just gonna bring him in quickly. And I think what we'll probably do is finish this conversation afterwards if there's a little bit more time. So, but let's kind of just talk about this for a moment, and then I can give Mike the floor. So, anyways, Mike, thanks for joining us. We're just kind of doing a little bit of housekeeping. So, hang tough, and we'll bring you in the next little while. Hope you don't mind kind of.
No, just
listening
whatever you need to do. Thank you.
Yeah. So just maybe we're just kind of talking. We're with early stages of the course. We're just trying to get ourselves orientated to the way to do it. So anyway, yeah. So I think that that's probably the best way to think about it. And then after you've written, but it could be even before. And I also might think that part of your process might be to read what other people have written. So if there's somebody that really likes to listen, I'm going to post it Thursdays as kind of my day. Thursday evening, I work at this and I'll write something great. That gives you something to respond to. So you don't have to write and then respond to people. It can, that order doesn't really matter. And it also could be the fact that you might not get a chance to respond to people until Monday or Tuesday of the following week, just because people's schedules are such. And I think my guess is you're going to kind of figure out who does what, because probably most of you are going to get into a habit of that's just when I've dedicated the time to do it, which is all fine. So that would be it's a long-winded answer, but I think that's a really important thing for people to sort of figure out their own groove. Like, what is it that's going to work for you? But that's essentially, yeah. So this week we have the content already there. And then what I'll be doing is posting something, towards either the weekend or early Monday, Tuesday next week for that upcoming week. Does that make sense for people? Good. Anybody else their week? What did they learn, find, wonder about?
I have a quick question, Dean.
Yeah.
For our discussion facilitation, you had indicated we need to sort of document our process and kind of be consistent with it throughout. Would you suggest that we create a blog post separate from our kind of weekly readings reflection blog post to sort of document that?
I mean, I would say Taylor at the end as kind of what you would submit for that. I don't know how much regularity you want to do that, because I think there's a lot. But to your point, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, perhaps, if you wanted to just create a Google Doc that's sort of tracking your own personal work, and then because then the end would be actually pretty simple, just to say like, listen, this is kind of the big takeaways I've had. Yeah. So if there's and I think that it's a good idea in order to sort of, like, people have to figure out, like, where do I capture my thinking and learning that I want to go back to? So, I mean, there's all these ways of doing that. Like that's why people use bookmarks, so the bookmark resources, but that doesn't necessarily capture your thinking or reflection on it. So, and that's where I use Digo, where I put a lot of notes in there. So when I read something that really resonates with me, I like to put a note into, like, here's the part of this that I'm thinking about. So yeah, so having those kind of tools, that's what I would recommend.
Hi, Dean.
Hey.
Yeah, so the link to my blog is not up on the blog up yet. So I just wanted to know, like, if you'll be posting that later, if you'll be updating it later.
So when you have that link, just send that to me, however, and then I'll populate it on our space. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I also filled the students form. Yeah. So I already like added that to the form, but I can send it to you personally as well.
Okay, if it's in the form, that's fine. I'll look at it again. I have to, because there's a few other people that oh, I see. You just added it there. Yeah. So listen, if you've got it there and I have any questions, I'll reach out to you asking. But so one of the things that's always tricky with a blog is like some people have category, and we'll talk about that later, but some people have categories, some people don't, and depends on where your feed is. You don't need to worry about that. I can figure all that out for you. My goal was to make sure that hub, the blog hub, had all your updated posts. So I was checking that all week when you did, as soon as people did write something, making sure that I was getting the right feed into the blog, which I think I did for most. And then there's a few that I don't know the last time I did, it hadn't posted yet. So yeah. So those of you that haven't written anything this week, you still owe me a post don't owe me, but you owe yourself a post, I guess, for that one. And I also just wanted to point out, and I think it was on, Kathleen, is this your first course?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So you were the one that wrote that. And I was so pleased that there was about 3 of you that commented on your post. And wasn't that lovely to get that from those people?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. People saying, listen, we got you covered. You'll get this. You'll figure this out. We all did. We were there. So I appreciate, I know Chris was one of them. I can't remember who else was posting, commented on that, but that's really, I mean, listen, if you can give somebody some level of, and again, I don't know if it's not even advice, it's just encouragement half the time. That's a really powerful thing. So thank you for those people that did that. Like, you're kind of looking out for your colleagues in the same way you would want the same thing for students in your class. When you see somebody that's kind of new, I've never been here before. And I think, Hanafat, this is your first class as well?
Yes, this is my first class as well.
Yes. So yeah, it's a little different for you than it is for, and how many of this is like your last one? It's at least one. Okay. Yeah. So
Oh, this
Andrea and
is the
Taylor, like
second.
this is super easy for you. Like, you're just trying to wrap it up. It's like, okay, get on with it. Just give me my degree. I get it. But if along the way, this journey, you can help those that are new to this experience, that's really, really helpful. So I appreciate that. So be thoughtful in those that you comment on, and really to encourage those people along the way that, hey, this is a community of people. We can help one another. And you know, one of the great joys of this experience, and I hope this has already happened for those of you that have been in the program for a while, that you've developed some, you know, collegial relationships with people that, you know, like, yeah, I know somebody that teaches something similar or somewhere else that you can stay somewhat connected to. I think that's an awesome sort of extra bonus of this. So we hope that happens as well. Yeah. Anything else in that vein?
Dean, so does it mean you're the one who actually put our updated posts on the blog hub?
It just does automatically.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to
Because
do anything.
okay. So I posted mine last night and it didn't appear on the blog hub.
Yeah, that's me. I haven't done that yet. So that's a me problem at this point, not a you
Okay,
problem.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
I wanted to make sure everybody did this. And so hopefully between tonight or tomorrow, if you don't see it up there, then ping me. But I'll probably, if I can't figure it out, I'll ask you something. So again, it's not a you problem, it's a me problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The other thing before I turn it over to Mike here in a few minutes is, and this is the part that I probably need your help more than anything, is really understanding how we can take best advantage of the Discord space. So I always like having some space where it's not email, it's joint conversation. It doesn't have to be super deep and serious, although it can be, but a place to ask some of the questions that you've asked today, but you could ask it when it comes to mind. You don't have to wait for Tuesday to ask, or just other interesting things. So I'm going to ask you to tell me if you found, and again, I know for some of you, I don't know, Josh, if Discord's a part of the using, a Twitch world, if you will, because that's not my world, but I know it merges a little bit more with that. I don't know if there's a sort of a best practice that people have experienced or want to have with that space. I'm also cognizant of the fact that trying to minimize, like I could create 10 more spaces for people to do stuff, which is just unwielding and not useful. So I'm trying to figure out and know that, like, that's why when we talk about the various ways that you could be networked, you might find that Discord is just not my thing and I don't hardly use it. I spend my time commenting on blogs, interacting in other space. All of that's cool. You don't, there's no expectation that you have to use every space equally. That said, I'm curious to know what people's thoughts are on Discord and how it could be best used in the course. Has anybody used it in other courses? It's my other question. Successfully or unsuccessfully?
I use it in my EC&I 834 with Katia, and it was kind of functioning the same way ours is functioning at first. And then as there were questions about assignments that came up, we did drop that in there. If you had an announcement or the instructor had an announcement that it would notify you, they dropped that in there. But I found it was something that grew in that class. So I think we're just kind of at the beginning, but
sure.
I prefer
appreciate
personally
that.
to email because I like the little notification, and it might be just a quick question I can quickly help someone with. But
Well, that's the other thing is, and I apologize because some of you sent me an email in my U of R email, and I got to get in the habit of checking that in the course email, and I didn't. So apologies if I was delayed on that. But I know Andrea, I think you pinged me in a couple different ways, so I appreciate that, knowing that this guy's not listening. It's not that I'm ignoring you at all. It's just like I've got to figure out my own cadence to ensure that I'm paying attention to everybody and where it is. And that's why I think, yeah, Discord would be probably the best place. But like you're saying, Miranda, no, if I don't have notifications on, but I do. So, I mean, maybe for now, I might try doubling up on some of these spaces until we kind of figure it out. So if that's where we're at with just sort of trying to figure this out, then that's where we're at. But anyway, if we have time at the end, we can come back to some of these things and talk about it more. But I don't want to delay any further our first special guest of the course. So I will do a very quick introduction to Mike. Mike and I have never met, and I've known of Mike's work for years. He probably doesn't have any idea who I am. Doesn't matter. Makes the difference. The cool part is, with this thing called the internet, is you can just reach out to somebody and say, hey, do you want to do a thing? And all they can say is get lost or ignore you. And that's fine. I'm used to rejection, so I have no problem in that. But the cool thing is, more times than not, you're surprised that people say, sure, I'd love to. And I know Mike's an educator and he's passionate about the topic. So I wasn't completely surprised that he said, sure, I'll come talk to your students. And I know he's familiar with the University of Regina. I know he's done this before with Alec. And so that's kind of where I got the idea from. I say, well, if he talked to Alec, he maybe talked to my kids too. So Mike has been really, as I said before, kind of one of the originators of the meat and potatoes of what we say digital citizenship is. I don't know that he coined the phrase. That's not really the point of it, but the point of it is more, he's been really working his career in trying to help people navigate and figure out this idea of citizenship. And as I alluded to you last week, I think sometimes dropping digital and just talking about citizenship maybe works better, like, because it is just about being a good citizen, whether you're online or offline. Like, it's kind of the same, some of the same principles apply, and yet we understand the nuance. So anyway, Mike, I appreciate your time. I'm going to pass it on off to you and tell me what you need. I think everything should be there for you if you want to share your screen and so forth. And we're just excited to have you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dean. I'm just glad to join in, and it's been a few years since I've done any teaching. I used to teach for Kennesaw State down in Georgia, did that for a while, and like you said, Alec has had me in a couple of different times, and so we've kind of shared back and forth. When I was teaching, he'd jump into my class and I'd jump into his, and so we kind of did the back and forth thing. But right now I'm kind of in between. But it's great to just have the opportunity to talk to students and really listen. I'd be interested, as we get into this, what other people's thoughts are. You're spot on about the whole citizenship piece. It's really about who we are in relationship to each other, and that's, I was very fortunate. I was I had met a professor by the name of Dr. Bailey at Kansas State University when I was there, and he was just a such a forward thinker, and he in when I was sitting in his course in, I hate to even say this, I was in this course in 2002, and probably some of your people probably weren't even born yet. But anyway, so 2002, and Dr. Bailey is giving a graduate seminar, and he's talking about technology and education. He was one of the first ones that really connected technology and educational administration. That was really his area. And he just, out of the blue, he says these two words. He says, you know, you as educators are going to have to be involved and understand how digital citizenship works in and around your professional lives. And I was like, what did you just talk about? I mean, it's one of those things where I will give you one tip for your students. Listen to your professors, because every once in a while they will drop something on you that it's just like it just changes your entire trajectory. And I will tell you that from 2002 until 2024, that's where I've been. I mean, 22 years, and digital citizenship has been just been part of my world. So it's one of those things where you get lucky, at times. But he started talking about digital citizenship, but he was had this sort of just general concept of it. And I said, I want to do this for my dissertation. And he says to me, then you need to create a foundational piece for what is digital citizenship, because no one had done that. Yeah, the term had been around for a little while. In the 1990s, I did that part of my literature review and kind of found it kind of floating around, but no one really defined it. And so that was one of the first things that we did was I defined it, created a foundation. So I'll talk about that in a second. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity. And please, as we go along, if you have questions, don't be afraid to stop me. Just say, "Hey, Mike, what did you mean by that?" Because sometimes I get on a train and I just hope that everyone just jumps on and we go from there. So I'm going to share a few slides. I'm not a big slide person, but I've found that sometimes it's a little easier to talk about some of these things. So going to talk a little bit about just understanding digital citizenship, and this expanding digital landscape. So, as we, kind of talk about this, I want you to kind of frame this as you're thinking about this, about the technologies that you use, your students use, but also your children and your, extended families and what they use. Because as I said, digital citizenship is really about this experience of us related to technology. And sometimes, people feel like it's just, I've got the device in front of me and that's all it is. And it's much more. And we're seeing that growth and what that could be and what that looks like. And um, I'm hoping that there'll be, a little more of a resurgence. The term is kind of, I wouldn't say stale right this moment, but people aren't really talking about digital citizenship. It's now we've really focused on cybersecurity and AI and all the different social media and all of that. So we're going to hit upon all of those as we go. So I'm going to hit on just a few of these things. So what is digital citizenship? I'm going to talk about our book that Dr. Park and I did. He's out of Kentucky here in the United States, about safe, savvy, and social. Um, Digital citizenship and social media, and then digital citizenship and artificial intelligence. And that's, Alec is just such a whiz on those things. And it's just great to hear him talk about some of those pieces and how all of that kind of connects together. Um, Building blocks of digital citizenship in schools and higher ed, and then extending digital citizenship into the larger community and its importance. So that's kind of where I'm going to hit upon. But like I said, if you want to go down another, different direction, let me know. So we did, when we did our book in 2019, Dr. Park and I, we did update the definition of digital citizenship. It was always the developing norms of appropriate and responsible, but we added empowered in that piece because that's to me where the focus should be is how can we empower ourselves and our students to do more? Because if all we're doing is taking tech and we're replacing it for something else, then why not do it on paper pencil? I mean, what advantage have we done? But now we can expand what our students can and where their minds are. So, you all have students that, they are paper pencil, they're going to write an essay that's, 1,000 words and, that's what they do. But then you've got those students that, take the video and they're able to um, explain and pull together these ideas without having to write it out, and put it at paragraph after paragraph. Are we ready as educators? Are we ready as those in the society to accept more of that, and using that to be able to show how we understand things? Because not all of us do and understand things and show things the same way. And I think this is, a new opportunity and a new age for that. Um, so by doing this, by having this sort of guardrails, and ever since AI came out, we talk a lot about guardrails, and we kind of talk about, not so much that it's penning us in, but it's giving us sort of a direction, a pathway. And I've always seen that with digital citizenship is it's it's giving us these side pieces to be able to say, if I want to use technology, what's the goal? What's the outcome? What am I doing with that? And, too often there's people that just all they do is they pick up the phone, they pick up the tablet, they pick up the whatever, and they don't have any goal for it. It's, well, they gave it to me, so that's what I'm going to do. And so now we need to kind of open up and really start thinking about all of these pieces and what that looks like. And so that's kind of where we go with that. So we started talking about this S3 model, and for those, if you go to my website, if you go to digitalcitizenship.net, it has all of this information there, but it also has some of the things that kind of it expanded from. So we went with the S3, so this idea of safe, savvy, and social, but it was also, looking at, how do we respect, how do we educate, how do we protect? So sometimes if you read some of my older stuff, you'll hear about reps, which is respect, educate, protect, which you can see on the right-hand side with the definition is basically the inversion of safe, savvy, and social. I will tell you that the reason we went with S3 is our publication, they said that people love alliteration. So we went with S3. That's sometimes how things happen. So, but I do like the idea of safe, savvy, and social in looking at each one of the elements and really saying, what is our progression? Where do we go? And I think everyone can sort of agree that if you talk about technology, safety is going to be one of the base pieces. We're always going to talk about safety. How are we safe, but also how do we make other people safe? And then savvy is just that building process. I've always seen digital citizenship in the same light as any other educational form. So let's take English language arts, for example. It takes building blocks to get to that place where you're able to write a chapter, a book, a whatever. You don't do that when you first get started. When you're in kindergarten, you're not writing, pages and pages of text. You're understanding about the building blocks, nouns, verbs, adverbs, all of those things. And once you've mastered that, then we build on it. But we never forget that. So even when you're, at the university level, you still do those things, but now they've become part of who you are. So when you're writing, when you're doing those things, that's you. That's part of you. And I've always hoped that digital citizenship would be the same thing, that as we build upon it, as we continue to share it, each level, it becomes less and less difficult to say, why are we doing this? Why each of these? And then social being that upper level. So just, you could take Maslow or whatever, and you think of that hierarchy, you move through that, and that pinnacle piece is, am I able to interact with other people? And that's the social piece. And so, too often, we just jump into that social, here, I'm going to hand you a device. And, back in my day, it was you go out to MySpace or Facebook or whatever it was. And now, of course, it's Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and all of those kinds of things. So, everyone kind of jumps through all of those things instead of, how do I stay safe on X, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever? It's I just want to be social. I want to be up at that level because that's where everybody else that I know is. And whether they went through that process or not, the same thing. It's been really interesting. I don't know if you saw it today, or I think it was late yesterday. Meta, who now owns Instagram, is trying to create this teen or child Instagram versus the full blown. And they're supposed to have all these guardrails and all of these, what content it can get to. A lot of those things are there. I mean, they were there before, but people had to go out and do those. They had to go out and set them up. They had to configure them. Everyone wants everyone wants the easy button. Everybody wants to just, hey, let's just use that. That becomes the piece that's out there. Thank you, Miranda. Um, Speaking of that, let me go back real quick. The progression chart is available for you. Miranda just mentioned about it in Excel. um, it gives you that frame and each one of those, that safe, savvy, and social for each of the elements. So um, it's available for you. You take it down and you can, rework it however you want to or need to for your situation. But that's something that we created, Marty and I, that we felt like that was part of the things that were missing when people were asking about digital citizenship that were out there. Thank you for putting it out there, Dean. So anyway, so it's there. Take a look um, and just take and use it however you want. Like I said, hopefully it gives you some ideas and it gives there's some columns for you to put additional information and things that work for you as well. Um, so again, we're trying to do this, both protect and educate at the same time, and sometimes that feels like you know, when you put in a car, you're putting both feet on, one on the gas and one on the brake at the same time. And sometimes that seems a little counterintuitive, when you're trying to do the technology out in schools. And sometimes, you've got administrators that say, we want you to go, we want you to put that out there. And then sometimes it's like, we better slow down a little bit because we've got parents that are saying, they don't want their kids in front of screens all day long. They need to go back to paper and pencil. They need to do that. And I'm not saying one thing is right, necessary more than another, but we also have to come back and ask ourselves, what is the goal of education? That's ever since I started in the field, that was always the thing that I fell back on. What is the goal that we're trying to do for students? If we're focused on taking tests and getting grades and doing those things, then that's our goal and that's our focus. If it is preparing someone for post-secondary, getting out of school, being part of society, going back to what Dean said about citizenship that we're trying to build, then this needs to be where we're at. And we have to begin to build those skills. And it doesn't always have to be in front of a screen. You know, you guys teach citizenship all the time in your classrooms and on campus, all of those places. It happens, but it doesn't happen necessarily just naturally. We have to help others, and we've got to be able to show them how do we get to that place? How do we get to, you know, understanding what the technology is, what it looks like, how can we help others? And so, we've got to have those interactions. And I will tell you, I haven't done a lot of going out and presenting like I used to, but I tell this story, that I was down in, I was down in Georgia, I believe. I was at a high school that had an auditorium that's at 5,000 people. So I was not the only person that was speaking that day. I was on a dais with, it was, oh, it was Alabama, it was Huntsville, Alabama. And so I'm on the dais with the mayor of Huntsville, the president of Missing and Exploited Children for the United States, myself, the chief of police for Huntsville, and we're talking about technology and what kinds of things can it do, but also the issues that come with it. And then I'm supposed to give a presentation afterward and talk about digital citizenship. So we had this big auditorium and we're expecting a pretty good sized crowd and 5,000 seats, and there are 20 people in the entire auditorium. And they're not, of course, all sitting together. They would never sit in one place. I've got two up here, I've got five over here, I've got three down here. And so, the Q&A was a little interesting because it became kind of a shouting match. But anyway, I'd always said, I'm going to present and share my ideas with, if it's two people or 200, that's just how it is. But it's just interesting when we try to get parents, we try to get, community to get involved, uh, unless it is about the fear. The only times that I've seen where there have been packed houses is if you don't do something, your children are in trouble, kind of thing. That it's that fear-based piece, and that tends to get more people out. But the problem is the fear piece only goes so far. We can only take that to a certain level, and then we get jaded by it. Nothing happened to me yesterday, and if I take that methodology, then probably there's a good chance that nothing's going to happen to me tomorrow. So, we'll just roll the dice and we'll go with it. So, but we have been seeing in the last 3 or 4 years, at least in this area, cybersecurity has become a bigger piece because of the attacks, email attacks, those kinds of things that have been going on. And that's kind of pushed the stage away from just focusing on digital citizenship. And now, we're focused on cybersecurity and how do we lock things down and how do we, make more, things more secure and multi-factor authentication and all of these kinds of things, which again, as an IT guy, I run an IT shop, and we prescribe to those things, and they are helpful, but it's hard for people to then get their hands around, okay, we're talking about the same thing here. Safety in cyber is part of digital citizenship. And, that's what I tried to get across to people 20 years ago was, just because it's, pre iPhone and all of those other things are going to come. And they did, and they still continue to. And then, of course, the last 2 years, everything has been shifted again, and now it's all AI. And, how can we focus on that? And again, I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. I think, again, AI is part of digital citizenship because it is part of that whole socialization. How do we use it? When do we use it? When does it make sense? I'll touch on that here in a second. But we need to help our parents, our community. They don't realize how much power they have. When people are on their phones and their children are just, standing there next to them and they're not paying attention to their children because they're on their phones, that's now the baseline you've created. That phone can be more important than everything else around them. And I'm not saying that I haven't fallen in that trap because at times it happens. But then all of a sudden you kind of wake up and it's like, oh, how did I get here when that becomes my life, my cell phone, my tablet, my whatever. So we have to understand because if we're doing it and, the discussion always has been, don't have cell phones at the table, during dinner and things like that. But if we're doing those things and our kids see that, what should our expectations be when they get to that place where they're on devices and then you want to be in connection with them? So it's a catch-22 sometimes. So, but it's a building process. We need to continue to hone on our skills and do those, as we go along. So, and we need to think about, what our decisions are. I'm gonna stop for just a second because I'm gonna take a drink of water. Um, what questions do you have so far? I'm kind of throwing a whole lot at the wall right at the moment. So, I hate to hit you with 22 years worth of stuff like in an hour, but it's fascinating to me to kind of see this progression and then now how everything kind of seems new to a lot of people that, I'm like, boy, didn't we talk about that like 20 years ago? And, but, I'm, I'm getting to that age and I'm not going to talk about history, but, I still prescribe to people like, Marshall McLuhan, and his work. I mean, going all the way back to the University of Toronto, the things he talked about in the 60s about technology, and he had no clue about cell phones or tablets or anything. He was talking about televisions and telephones and how they are going to change us as people because we won't we won't write letters anymore. And a lot of people don't. And there you get less and less of those. So I'm going to stop for a second and what questions do you have?
I have a question.
Please.
You talked a little bit about the importance of digital citizenship, guiding our behavior and interactions in the digital world, just as it does in the social world. And you just kind of leaned into that, like, yes, we don't write letters anymore. And I don't have any specific references, but I'm starting to dabble in these long-term studies on change psychology. And I'm just wondering how that's informing your work.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, and the interesting thing now is we're getting into a lot of the social emotional and how all of those things are tied together. And you know, uh, and there some of that's been laid at the feet of technology that technology has broken relationships, and we don't have the connections, we don't have the ability to integrate with one another because we're so tied to that screen in front of us. I contend that we could flip that. I mean, it could be that, just like Dean said, here's this thing called the internet, and I can send out signals to people that I really don't know, and I can say, hey, I'd really like to connect with you and be able to do these things. And it can open a lot of those things. Now, if I sat in my room and never left it and just sat there and watched cat videos all day long, it might be a little bit different situation because now I'm just, that was the whole concern about television in the 70s and 80s, late 60s, early 70s and 80s. Was that we were receiving information. We weren't making anything. And that was at the dawn of the new digital world. Was look at all the possibilities of the things that we could build. So back to your question about, psychology and all of that, I think it's a huge piece of that because we are tied to these technologies, but we have to be aware of that. And, at some point we have to look up and say, okay, I just spent 3 hours watching TikTok videos on all kinds of things. And I'm not saying that's wrong because I found some great recipes and things on TikTok. I will tell you that there are some amazing things, but there's also a lot of other things that are out there too. But I could say the same thing about YouTube or Instagram or Snapchat or any of those. But are we using it to become more social people, more connected to each other? And that's hard on adolescents who don't have any life experience except for possibly that. And I think that's the trap that some of these, and if you start younger and younger and younger, if you're handing a cell phone to, and I'm saying handing a cell phone by, they're carrying a cell phone at 7, 8, 9 years old, it's going to change them. It is. And we need to help them. We need to provide them those skills. That's the safety, that's the education, that's that part. Does that help a little bit? I
Yeah, it
rambled a little
does.
bit.
It's so interesting. And I think a lot about that. Like if we do have a changed psychology, and I want to clarify, I don't think that all tech is a bad thing. I think there's so many positive sides, and not only can it help, communication, like Lisa mentioned, but it does provide a space where people can find a sense of belonging if they are maybe marginalized in their community. They can grow their world. But I'm wondering if children's psychology is changing and we're looking at even addictive properties, how does our approach have to change then to, like you said, teach those social skills? That's something that's been on my mind a lot. So it's really interesting stuff.
Well,
That-
let me add to that, and Mike,
Go ahead.
I'd like your response to that is, you mentioned history and you said you didn't want to go down too far that, but I do think having knowledge of history and knowing, that some of the nations mirror what were happening, in the 1920s around radio and then around televisions. We've been down this road in part. However, I think Miranda touches on, the natures of these technologies have this additional, the algorithm and so forth. You watch you watch The Social Dilemma and those kind of things, and these have a greater impact on us. So I guess I wonder, Mike, sorry for interrupting, but I just want to ask you if you can respond. You can respond however you want, but I'm wondering about how your own ideas around digital citizenship have morphed and changed. I think there's probably fundamental things that are just like, this is universal, the way you have to be in 2002 and the way you have to be in 2024. But are there aspects of your work, of this work, that has changed as a result of better understanding today's new technologies?
Oh, most definitely. We had no real idea of what things were coming. I mean, you have to remember the iPhone wasn't even invented until 2007. So, we're talking about 2002. We're talking about 5 years before that, before, we had real smartphones. I still had a flip phone. I mean, I had, it was a different idea. But I will tell you that, in some of the research that I've looked at, because the only time that you can really sort of set them up against each other, because you mentioned it, Dean, of different examples from the past, is the printing press. If you really think about the change in a society, the printing press was the change agent. But to get to the maximum usage of the printing press, it took almost 200 years to get to that place. We've reached a lot of that expansion on a global scale, not in the United States, not in Canada, not in the Western Hemisphere, globally, in less than 20. So you're talking about, incremental growth in the printing press, and we're talking about massive changes to a society. And like I said, not just here, but globally, and some places in the world, cell phones with, data connection is their world. I mean, I was fortunate. I was in Egypt well, it was right before COVID. It was in 2019. And the kids, they had cell phones, and that was their device. They connected through everything. And it was really, really inexpensive. I mean, they were, next to nothing as far as cost wise. Not like, in the Western, where, we can spend hundreds of dollars a month, on, our data plans and all of those kinds of things. But they were just, they were getting to that place that we were probably about a decade before that. But they were rapidly expanding because they saw what we had done in the late early 2000s up until that time. I mean, the expansion was just amazing. So, yeah, yes, I think you do have to understand history. I just know that people don't like to, they don't like to go down those rabbit holes all the time, but you have to understand that we're pushing so much onto us as a people in a much smaller amount of time. And that, I think, is part of, us trying to understand it, to grapple with it. Because there for a while, it was every single day there was something new. You had, we went from, like I said, Facebook, and then all of a sudden, we're into, Twitter, and then we're into, Instagram and Snapchat, and you were talking about Discord, and there's just, I think at one time I probably had like 20 different communication apps on my phone because different groups that I was with, each one kind of used a different one. Some like this one and some like this one, and so it was it was mind-boggling, to be honest. I mean, I remember being part of Twitter chats that, would last hours, and we're, at 120 characters, we're sending, these back and forth, and it wasn't just one person. I mean, there was thousands of people that were all talking at the same time. So anyway, sorry, I tend to do those things, but it's just fascinating to me that, we've come so far so fast. Anyone else at this moment? I'm going to give you more chances. Don't worry. So we kind of just started going there, and then, this idea of then social as sort of this pinnacle piece, as we've kind of, moved along. And again, it's it has so many nuances to it. Everyone just thinks that, oh, you're just watching, looking at a video. But when in time did we have that opportunity to be able to create and to share and to, I mean, there's people that probably would have never been known if it hadn't been for YouTube. That they, the way that they sing, and the information that they're sharing and all of those kinds of things. It's just, it's fascinating. But we have to utilize them in a way that we're connecting, but we're also understanding that there are people out there. And I think sometimes we push things out into the ether, and we forget that there's all of these people. And then we also, I really, really try not to look in the comments on anything, because that's a whole rabbit hole that I just I don't like to go into. But being able to have discussions that's civil in nature, that we can still connect, and but we can disagree, but we can do it in a way that we can, you know, be able to give our point, but also, not trample on everybody else's. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that. But I think it's so easy that once we get behind a screen, a lot of that we tend to lose that. And all of a sudden now it's I have issues, I had a really bad day, you know, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna release all of my hate venom, whatever you want to call it, out on the world. And so we've got to get our kids ready and understanding, one, that they shouldn't do that, and two, how can they be effective communicators and not just everything from the gut. There are times when you have to do that. I mean, there's, some of that, comes out. But if you want to be in a society, and when I started to look at digital citizenship, uh, you have to be able to work and interact and help and share and do those things in a society. Or you might as well go ahead and find an island someplace and go off by yourself, because it's about connection. And that's what citizenship is at its very, very core. You think about being a citizen of Canada, being a citizen of your university. It's, how do I interact? How do I help other people? And if we can't do that, I think we've missed a lot of this. So the other piece, and I briefly talked about it, is about balance. And I know some people don't like that word necessarily because it seems kind of trite when you say, balancing, your life, your real life versus your online life. We used to call it real life and RL and OL. We used to talk about that disconnect between those two. But we have to be able to connect still with other people. And I think, we tend to miss that now. You go to the grocery store and we pick up our device almost as a security piece, because if we're not sure about, should I say something, should I interact with somebody else? So I pick up my phone and I put it, I hold it up, and that becomes my protection. That's my security. And I see that, I go to restaurants, and I'm a big people watcher. I loved going to Paris because you could just sit on the street corner and you just watch people. But it you watch people in a restaurant and you see entire families that are all on devices, and they're all sitting together. So they're in proximity, but they're not communicating with each other unless they're communicating on their device with each other, which could happen too. Um, so it's kind of a crazy didactic. So digital citizenship, it's a building block piece, and how do we integrate that safe, savvy, and social model? Really, safety is that cybersecurity. It's that baseline. How do we make sure that we're protecting ourselves? But again, in a society, we also have to think about other people. We're doing those things not just for ourselves, but we're also doing it to protect others. Savvy, it's digital literacy, it's critical thinking. You know, I've known a lot of people that did a lot of work with that. A friend of mine, Dr. Jason Oler, we lost him a couple of years ago. He went to the University of Toronto. He was also just a great, great writer. His works are out there, and just he was very much into the digital literacy and really shared a lot through his work. And then the social, and encouraging that responsible conduct. How do we do things online? And we talk about the if you wouldn't do a certain thing in front of your grandmother, why would you do it online? Those kinds of things. And um, some people's grandmothers would, would do a lot of things online that probably would be a lot different today. So, but again, I think we just have to think about others, and we really have to keep that in the forefront. Can't get away without talking about artificial intelligence, AI today. When we talk about how it's used and when it's used, all of those things, that's digital citizenship. That's digital literacy first and foremost. How do we use it? But it's when should we use it and in what context? That's the digital safety part of it, that we have to be thinking about, are we putting, personal information into the AI, and it's now sharing it out to multiple people, or are we, containing that, and that's in schools and things like that. That's one thing that I don't think that everyone really realizes, that, oh, well, we'll just take, the student database and we'll put it in there, so we can, spit out, information. Well, now you've taken all this personal information. Now you've pulled it all together. Um, but it can be a very powerful tool. And, that's where I see, the potential of AI is, now we can take all of this information that's out there, and now we can cull it together. There were many years that went by that I really wish that I kind of knew what other people were thinking about digital citizenship on a global scale. And yeah, I knew a number of people, and I could reach out to them, and then they could reach out to two people, and we could connect. But wouldn't it be fascinating to be able to just go out and connect in this AI sphere, and be able to see all of those connections and what that looks like, and then what could we do with that? Once we had all of that information, we were literate enough to see what that was, then we could take it and we could build this community, and we could really show that to other people. So, you know, you know, I've been a big social or science fiction reader for a long, long time, and so, there's a lot of these dystopian, the end of the world, the robots taking over, and all of those things. And I tend to think of it as how we can interact and how we could collaborate and connect and find those. Certainly, when you talk about a tool, technology is a tool, and it can be used like any other tool. If you have a hammer, you can use a hammer to build things, build houses, but you can also use it to do harm to other people. So tools are just as good as the people that wield them, and we have to teach the people that wield them, and that's the big piece with technology. Social media, we've talked a little bit about this, so I'm not going to drive all of this, but if you talk about the different elements and communication, of course, social media is all about communication, but it's ethical and responsible and respectful and all of those pieces. Etiquette, again, how do we interact with one another? What's that proper way that we do things? Rights and responsibilities, privacy, user rights, and then of course security, talking about, that piece of it. It's all about connecting all of these. So I've said it several times, and I hope that, I'm trying to drive home this idea of this society, and maybe I'm playing this a little naive, that that we could have this sort of utopian society. It's probably a little more, fantasy than it is reality, but we can always hope. I mean, that's our goal is, how could we use these? But then again, how can we help our children to take it to the next level? Because, as parents, that's always, our hope as well, that our children will do as well or better than us. I mean, that's what, we try to do as a species. We continue to try to build and make things better. And by doing that, how do we connect? So we have to have parents, we have to have families, we have to have community leaders, policymakers. And sometimes it feels like we make a whole lot of policies and we share a lot of those kinds of things, and not everyone is listening. So I did provide some materials to Dean. They are more on a global scale. I really kind of stayed away from United States. We have a lot of stuff going on right now that not always the best and the most supportive, but I will tell you that the Western Europe, Australia for certain is doing a ton of work. And I will contend, and I know that not all the people in Canada believe this, but I've always felt that Canada has always been very, very supportive in digital citizenship and understanding this topic. And that goes all the way back to some of my early days. It's just I've been fascinated how much your culture tends to want to grab a hold of that and really want that to be part of who they are. And thank you. Just thank you for your efforts and the work that you do and get people involved. And sometimes it seems hard, and it is. It's every day, it's constant, it's continuous. So one of the last things that I'll leave you with, just digital citizenship is about people, it's about community, it's about society. If we can do these things, there's so many opportunities that are out there. I really, really believe that. And you can read all the articles that talk about the negative effects and, how this is, harming our children, all of those kinds of things. Possibly. But I think we can, as a society, as a digital citizenship, digital citizens, we can help. We can provide those skills. We can provide those. And it's not an overnight thing. Don't expect that, you're going to go into your classroom, tomorrow, next month, and you're going to be able to cover absolutely everything. You've got to build on this. And so you've got to work with your colleagues. You've got to work with other people. It's got to be a piece at a time. Think of it like you do anything else when you're teaching. How do I get from this concept up into these higher IDs? How do I move from one to the other? That's what my hope is for digital citizenship and for you. So, we talk about these, and there's a lot of this on my website, just being respectful, critical thinking, fact checking, protecting personal information, all those kinds of things. So it's essential, responsible, ethical use, safe, savvy, and social, collaborative to enhance it. So I hope that, you got something out of this that you were able to maybe hold on to and say, I hope that we can, get to that place, because that's what digital citizenship is. It's us taking these bit by bit, and we're continuing to help build that direction. So I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for having me come. If you want to connect, I don't do a lot of, I know it's called X now. I haven't changed it from Twitter. I'm an old guy. That's what I do. I am on LinkedIn. I do have my website at digitalcitizenship.net. If you're in there on the last page, if you want to send me something, there's a link. There's also my email addresses in there. Drop me a line if you have questions. I will certainly try to, help you as much as I can. But like I said, you've got a lot of great people around you that are doing these things. I mean, like I said, Alec and I go back a while, and he's been great. He has some great ideas. Um, and Dean, I hope that we get a chance to connect on a outside of this, and talk about some of these things as well. But take a couple minutes, and in the next few days, and just kind of let it seep in a little bit. How am I using technology in appropriate and responsible ways, and how do I help others? So thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. That was awesome. So appreciative. Again, you're trying to synthesize 20 plus years of work in an hour, which is, certainly not there. But, and first of all, I really appreciate the fact that you have extended an invite to people. And that's really what I want people to do is like, yeah, this an hour is good. But like, I hope that, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, there might be something that goes like, gee, that Mike guy, he said something that I want to pick his brain a little bit more on him. And I know you're the kind of person that would just welcome anybody's invitation to that. So I share that with everybody, saying that that's part of the gift that I hope this course gives you, is not just content for today, but a network of folks and all the people that I'm going to have on. And I'll just a little teaser for a future guest. Mike mentioned Michael or Marshall McLuhan. If you don't know who he is, we're going to learn about him. But I'm having his son on, Andrew, in about a month, who's continued the work of his father around some of these things. I mean, these are some of the smartest people I know in this area, and so
Please tell him thank you, and from and from Jason Older, that he knew very well as well too.
Okay. Yeah. So, but that's just all part of it. So, Mike, I did have one kind of question for you. I think I would have been one, and I talk about this in a lot of the work I do now, especially around when I talk about AI with people and talk about how it is it's a slightly different agent. And I often say, we often say technology is, and we use the word just a tool, which can be a bit of a dangerous statement because it sometimes is meant to sort of minimize its power and significance. And also just understanding that when we're talking about AI, tool might not even be the best. Like, it's an agent in that it can actually think and do things on its own, unlike a lot of the technologies we've had. Anyway, that's for another day.
Yeah.
But I do remember, when I was when I was working in a school division and on, that I would advocate for that empowered use. And I'm glad you added that idea of being empowered citizen, because it's never just about just don't do bad things. I mean, if you're going to be an effective citizen in the world, you're making contributions to your neighborhood, to your community, to your country, all of those things. And there were lots of stories that I could share, and that I always felt comfortable sharing, about reading about how people online, did these acts of generosity. There's stories that happened on Reddit of people that would just, out of the goodness of their heart, like, and as much as I agree with you, the comment section of almost any website can be just like full of vitriol and really not that valuable. There are these stories, right, of people that did good and beautiful things that happened, whether it's, whether you're talking about the Arab Spring in Egypt that really, changed the country because of the access of technology, really the driver. I'm wondering if there's any stories that come to mind that are a little bit more recent, because I'm just telling you, I struggle finding these stories today, and maybe I got to change my algorithm a little bit more to find some stories. But I'm just wondering if there are any sort of more recent stories that sort of, restore our belief in humanity, that we actually can do good things with these technologies, and they still happen in a digital world, even in 2024.
Before I jump into that, it's interesting you mentioned the Arab Spring. I actually had somebody email me in the midst of the Arab Spring, asking about what my thoughts about what was going on in Egypt during that time as related to digital citizenship and that. So it was just kind of fascinating. But
Yeah.
yeah, you know, it seems like it's harder and harder to find those really, really good stories, you know. But you know, I'm actually, you know, I'm an advocate of the help and the sharing that goes on in on YouTube and you know and and to be honest, I mean, really in TikTok and something like that because there's a lot of things, and maybe it's just the algorithm that I get, but I get a lot of um, music from you know my generation, my growing up, and it just it tends it tends to lighten me, you know, that you know there was and is still good that's out there that you know that you can see, but you know it's always these articles, you know, about, you know, everything's so, you know, it's so terrible, it's so awful, you know, that, but, you know, even talking about AI and you're right, you know, to call it a tool is a little trite, you know, it really isn't just a hammer, you know, it without a, you know, somebody to wield it, it really doesn't. But you know, I will say that, you know, some organizations like 60 Minutes, the things that they've talked about AI and the potential of it, and really giving sort of that other side of sharing what it could do for us, you know, that, you know, that it has that potential. And I felt like they had done a piece, I think 6, 8 months ago that was really pretty evenly handed as far as giving us you know, a potential of what, you know, what it could do for us. So, you know, there are examples that are out there, but you're right. I mean, it seemed like it was a little more balanced back, you know, probably 10 years ago that, you know, it was, you know, somebody would be in trouble and there would be this uprising, you know, of people giving money and, you know, you know, and then all the scams came along. And then, you know, it would turn into this thing of, well, do you really know who you're giving the money to and what it's for and da 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 da, you know. Um, you know, I'm a hopeful cynic, I guess, if you will, you know, that there is still good out there. And you know, even in my own community, I tend to see, I think our students are, you know, for the most part, do really good things. I mean, my children are the same way. You know, they're in their 20s now, and you know, you know, they are empowering themselves to use that technology, and what that looks like. So I'll think about that a little bit. You bring
Well,
a really, really good concept of, you know, what's the positives. So let me see if I can find some things and I will share them back with you in the next few days.
well, and let me just throw that out to everybody. Maybe that's a fun little activity for the week for everybody. Like if there's a feel good story or a story that represents, you know, sort of the goodness in humanity that is fostered through these technologies in some way, well, hey, put it in our Discord, because I think we all need a little more dose of the good things. I mean, when you talked at the beginning, Mike, and I put that quote in there that fear is big business. Like that's what's going to attract it. Like saying, hey, come and learn. I mean, it's so easy to say, you know, I mean, and you and I both know people would falsely say that, like, putting your kid's picture on the internet, like there's going to be predators coming by your school and scooping up your kid and all of this. I mean, it was complete, you know, completely false. But that's the kind of thing that got people talking. And I mean, you know, you're going through, I believe somebody said there's an election in the US coming up. I don't know. Is that true, Mike?
I've heard rumors.
There's rumors. And you know, that's just a classic example. Yes, Lisa, I was thinking of that too. Like GoFundMe is another really good way. And people sort of can, you know, resonate with a, you know, with a cause that, you know, we right now, there's a family friend, this little guy's got leukemia. He's 2 years old, and it's been amazing to watch people sort of rally around that idea. So, I mean, I think it's there. I just think maybe we have to do a better job of highlighting that and putting that in the fore and understanding if there's a wave, you know, this thing can do some really good stuff if you pay attention to it. So, and I guess that's the charge. I know, Mike, listen, that's the reason I wanted you to come on, because I know that in those early days, most of the talks about digital citizenship, and all of you were in high school at one point when you had the police officer come in and tell you, like, this is bad stuff and you're going to get in trouble, don't do it. And it was like, okay, yeah, that's sure. Like, yes, we have to. However, might there be some ways in which we can actually, somebody actually just mentioned, I shouldn't have said it. Somebody told me, reminded me the other day, that if you want to actually see the best community online in action is join a knitting community online. They said they are the best. Like, this is a community of, and I'm not joking, like, and not facetious at all. Like, my wife's a knitter as well, so she knows about this. Like, this is a community that just lives to help one another, like, honestly wants people to do well, to succeed, to learn and grow together. And it's kind of probably a worthwhile a study for those of you that are continuing your education. You might want to check that one out. But anyway, I'll stop. If anybody else has any kind of last thoughts, questions for Mike before we let him go, I so much appreciate his time, and he's even an hour later than we are. So. Puppy community. Yeah, probably simple. Who doesn't like it? I mean, listen, if you're a nasty person on a puppy community, come on. What kind of a human being are you? Like, get real. Well, listen, Mike, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing that information, and people now know that you have given them all kinds of ways they can reach out and connect with you in the future. So all the best, and appreciate your time today.
Thank you again. Thank you for the time. Have a good evening and a good semester.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, well, awesome stuff. It was good to have Mike kind of lay some of that foundational stuff. And I think as you navigate your way through a lot of the content, his work will probably come up. So that's important to kind of know, where does that come from? How did we get to where we are? So I just wanted to the last few minutes just to sort of continue on with I just wanted to talk a little bit about your blogs in general. So let me share screens here so I can talk about this, just to give you just some stuff to think about this week. Where are we at here? I'll get there. No, that's not it. Yeah, that's it. All right. So yeah, with regards to, let me go to the actual blog here. So this is my back end of WordPress. So just so you know, all of the different sites you're using are WordPress sites. So the Edu sites, it's WordPress. It's just a different instant of it. So that's the good thing, is I think we're all kind of using a similar blogging format. So again, there you go, Anna. You're up and running there. I think that's your post. So that I got that all fixed up.
Thank you.
So a couple things that I would suggest to do with your blog, and rather than pointing out any of yours, I'll just go to mine. And the reason I do this is because I've been blogging like super long. 2005, I started blogging. Can you imagine? Almost 20 years I've been writing this, which I give myself a lot of credit, because when I started, I thought, I'll just do it and stuff. But it's been an amazing thing for me personally. Some stuff gets read, but I don't really write for other people as much as, like, how do I capture that thing I'm thinking about right now and hold that? And so it's a wonderful archive of my writing. But the one thing I would say that all of you probably should do at some point, if you have not already, a few of you have, I know, but they give you an about page by default. And I know with some of those ones, there's a sort of a fake I don't know, what is he called? Nookie, or there's some weird thing that's on your blogs and they all kind of populate these by default, but I would go in and just clean that up. And you don't have to write a big extensive thing. It can be very whatever. Like this is just me, kind of gives, and I mean, you know, for people that read about me or have me come speak or whatever, it kind of is a useful little place to send them. Yours can be simple, like I'm a teacher, whatever. And I think the biggest part of that is, even though you don't expect a whole bunch of people necessarily to come visit your space, when they do, it's nice to have a context. That's the first thing that I do when I'm reading somewhere else. I want to know, who is this person? Like, what is their perspective? Again, and if it's just, I'm a teacher, I teach in rural Saskatchewan, it can be as simple as that. So if you want to keep it really clean and tight, the other kind of fun thing to do is to do some research on fun about pages. Cause there's some people that are really clever with the way they do their about page. And I'm kind of lean towards that. I'm sure Alicia kind of is thinking that that's going to be her vibe, because she's Mrs. Clever in this course for sure. But anyway, I'm teasing you. But it's just fun. But so again, keep it simple, make it interesting, however you want. I would say just do something about it. Don't leave it. Like, don't make it say sample page, because that just looks like I didn't really care about this space. I'm just putting out. And listen, I also appreciate the fact that there's a compliance element of this, right? Like, you're doing this because I told you to, which I hate that component of it. My goal is that, and it happens occasionally with students I have, that you actually keep it after this. If you don't, I get that. So listen, I understand compliance. I understand that some of you are just doing this because this guy told me to do it. Fine. But I also think if you're going to have it, take a little bit of time with it. The other thing, and this isn't something I'm particularly good at all the time, but I have added some categories. So you'll see on your blog post, I don't know if this one has it or not, should have it here. Let me click on it. The individual post, it probably is at the bottom there. So I've got generative AI and writing. So if you click on writing, and again, this will tell you I'm not that great at keeping these categories, but that just pulls up all of the other articles and posts that I've had that have used, writing as part of its category. And then that's where this shows up here. So 832 could be a category. So I can see, I don't know. Is that yours, Chris? I know somebody wrote about digitals. A couple of you wrote about this, but anyway, having these on it, that's almost, again, a way for you. I find it is useful for me, so I can categorize things. So if I'm talking about a particular theme, I can kind of reference that. So that's more of a you thing. What else did I have on here? Yeah. And then the last thing again is, I just think adding a relevant video and or image can be helpful. It does. Some people just like, that's just an extra thing. I don't care about that. I'm just telling you, think about, again, put yourself in the position of a reader. What is it that you find engaging? Like, if there's a relevant video, even if it's like, here's a YouTube video that relates this, and the YouTube video is like 40 minutes, I'm probably not watching it. But if you say like, yeah, I get it, it's 40 minutes, but if you want to take a deeper dive, this video will kind of get you there. That you're just giving it, those are just gifts that you're giving to your readers that say, like, if you want more, go read this. This is where I'm getting these ideas from. And that's another part of it, is in your writing, and this is going to continue to be such a big issue with generative AI, and already is when it comes to copyright. Copyright's always been a challenge in the creative community, but we can model the way to do it by sharing who's influencing your thinking. So even if you're responding to something else, obviously you put the link to the thing you're responding to if that's available. But also, as you're processing your thinking and you're realizing, oh, I'm taking this person's idea, or I think this way because I've read this book, or whatever that is. That's just a good thing to get in the habit of doing along the way. Again, I think it's just, right now, I see that as a really great way to model to students. Like, nobody figures this out alone. Like, we're all influenced by all the things. And so you're seeing musicians now being very careful, saying, like, when you listen to this song, you're going to hear this, this, and this, because these are the people that have influenced who I am as a musician. So that's just a part of that. So I think for the most part, I've got all of your blogs up here. There might be a person or two that I'm missing. I will work this week to double check, go through that, make sure your feeds are working. There were a couple people who I couldn't get their feed to work. So if it's not working, I may reach out to you. And if I have a suggestion of how you can fix it, sometimes I don't know how to fix it, even if it's giving me a weird message, but we'll work on that together. And if all of a sudden, again, going back to Taylor's earlier point of documenting your own journey, I would, if it's me, I got a little spreadsheet or a document that tells me people that I've commented on. And then all of a sudden I realize, oh, shoot, I haven't commented on so-and-so. And it may not show up here, but it may show up on, you may have to just go directly to that blog and read there. So if the feed isn't working for whatever reason. And again, shout out to Dustin for his effective use of swearing in writing, which is always awesome. So see, there you go. Like, who's not going to read that blog post, right? Provocative titles. So provocative titles are always a good thing to do if you can figure out a way to kind of do that one. And even Anna's, I haven't read, I don't know what sharenting is, but I'm curious to know what that is. So I'm going to be reading about that because that's a provocative title. Anyway, any questions before we sign off for the evening? People feel comfortable about the week coming up. And again, there's a couple of you that still haven't blogged from last week. I'm not pressuring you. I'm just saying you'll have 2 to do this week. For those of you, you're just thinking about 1. And again, kind of think about your flow of the week, what that is. It doesn't have to be the same every week, but I think probably for most of you with the lives that you have that are so busy, it might be a good idea to figure out, you'll probably pick up on it. Friday nights, I blog instead of being a real fun person and going out. I blog Friday nights. I mean, listen, I think a few of you are at that stage of life where, yeah, a lot of you look pretty cool. Like Friday nights still be a thing, but there's some of you like, yeah, that ship sailed. Like, I don't know where you are in your life, but anyway, whatever that is, figuring out your cadence, engaging with other people on both Discord and on those spaces. And, yeah, so next week I will be won't be here. Next week I'll be in Vancouver or Surrey. And so I'll be coming to you from a hotel, but I think we're going to start talking a little bit more about, I'm going to finish up what I started last week around some of these topics. And then we might start getting into a little bit of generative AI. If not, that'll happen for sure the following week. But we have I've been working on a lot of guests, got a lot of really cool people. I'm excited to share with you all and connect with you. So with that, I'll hang around for a few minutes, but you all just take care and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Some of you kids should be in bed already. How come you guys are like, it's just about 9 o'clock? I know mom's been busy. You guys got to stay up a little bit late. Good for you. Kathleen, how old is your little one?
He's gonna be 4 in 2 weeks.
Nice. Preschool?
No, we can't make preschool work just with our hours, so he just goes to daycare. But he unfortunately had a nap today, so it'll be another 10 o'clock bedtime.
Awesome. So, Alicia, where are you? How old is your little one?
She's gonna be 4 in October, end of October.
Nice. How are you? What's your name, sweetie?
What's your name?
Is it
Arden.
Arden? Nice to see you, Arden. And what's your name, young fella? Can't see him there. What's your name, buddy?
Hunter.
Hunter. Hey, Hunter.
Yeah.
Do you have red hair?
He has like blondish red hair. He also thinks everyone on the screen is my friends, and he was really mad that I didn't let him say hi to every single person on the screen.
Hey, if you want to say hi, buddy.
Can you wave and say hi to them?
Hi. I have a 3-year-old grandson. He has fiery red hair.
Oh.
And he is, yeah, he's a lot. He's a lot. Oh, look, you got your, I don't see how sharp I am. That's not is it one of those? I can't remember the name of it. What's?
It's the girl Stitch.
Oh, okay, from
Yeah.
Stitch. Okay, all right, all right. I'm usually pretty.
It's
I'm
his
usually pretty.
girlfriend.
There we go.
Anyways,
we go.
thanks for tonight. It was great.
Yeah. All right. Am I still sharing my screen? I still am. I don't know. There, we're talking.
I've got a couple questions.
Yes.
And I probably just missed it last class. For the major project, it says that we have like the research portion of it, and then there's a final product. What would be an example of what you're looking for the final product?
So if you look at, let's go in here and look at it specifically. So if you take one of those examples, for example, we see, well, yeah, this one here. So development of a curriculum supported digital citizenship literacy resource. So, you know, we actually, that one actually has Ribble's 9 elements of here. I'll share my screen. So we're talking, you know what I'm talking about. So we're on the same page. There we go. So here, right? So you're going to create something very specific. Now, this obviously is going to get to something super specific to a grade level, subject level, whatever. Like what would that look like? So, you know, the research obviously going to be pretty extensive. You're going to have to look a lot. I mean, there's a lot out there, right? So this one is probably a highly curated kind of experience where it's like there's almost like a lit review component to this. But then, you know, the ultimate project is going to be, you know, something that's very user-friendly, that feels like something that you could use, not only something useful for you in terms of a digital literacy citizenship curriculum or resource, but something that you know, obviously could feel comfortable giving to a colleague, saying like, this would really help you. I think I've done a really good job kind of navigating that kind of world. So that's an example.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at option 2 for mine.
Okay. Okay.
So would like obviously the review of each app that I look at, like an in-depth, like would like a video, like almost like a YouTube style video reviewing
For the
everything?
end project?
Yeah.
Like for the actual artifact? Yeah, I could see that. I mean, in this one too, like you could do like, so you think about, you know, you're doing in-depth research of apps. So, I mean, you know, and looking at things like terms of service. Well, I mean, so you're going to have to look at that terms of service and then synthesize that, because they're usually 1 billion pages long. So no, it's not like you're going to, you know, just sort of what are the key elements of that. I could see like this would be a good example too of, you know, finding a few people, young people, like people in your circles who might want to speak to these things, like how they regularly use that. So you could do a bit of an interview. And again, we're not putting that as a, you know, capital R research. It's definitely lowercase r research. But I mean, if you had 3 people that just, you know, whatever, friends, that would speak to how they use some of those tools. That might be really, really interesting to sort of capture that and synthesize that in some respects. Again, not to suggest that you're, you know, now you know how all young people use these tools, but here's 3 people who use them and how that is or isn't maybe representative of some of the larger data out there talking about the use of those kind of tools. But yeah, I think, and again, I think having your own kind of slant to that. So it might begin with a bit of an inquiry question, like, do students use this for X, or are they spending too much time using this, or what's their own sort of personal relationship to these tools? Because there's and I think that's fascinating, because there's a lot of young people who are super self-aware, who realize even if they overuse them, they know that, right? And they say like, I use it too much. Then there's lots of young people who aren't self-aware, and they're using it constantly and say like, I can't live without it, right? Like this is my whole life because of, and then you doubt, and then you dive into things like, well, maybe they suffer from loneliness or whatever, anxiety. And so it's more complicated than just, you're using your phone too much, right? So I think there's some nuance there that I think a project like this would want to uncover from your own personal take and perspective. Is that helpful?
Yeah, definitely. And then my other question was, I believe I filled out the form and I gave you the link to my blog, but I'm not seeing my name on the blog hub.
Yeah, that's because
think
me. That's
probably
because that's a me thing.
I was
There it
kind of
is, Kelsey.
assuming it's because I didn't post the
No,
blog last week yet.
okay. Yeah, so let me see. I'm gonna add it right now because what happened is I tried adding people's early on, and when they didn't have anything, it just said like there's nothing to add here. Whereas yours now is awesome. So I just click use this feed, and then I go and I just add it to the top here. So I appreciate this. This is again a me issue, but I'll get it sorted out. Yeah. No, we'll do it right in front of your eyes here so that I don't forget. This is good. I apologize too.
Oh, it's okay. I just didn't want to miss it.
No,
and
I know.
want to submit the thing or.
Nope, it's not you. And if I refresh my page now, there you are. I click here and I know you made a special category, right? This is where, okay, so this is where you put that here?
It was under the master's certificate one, yeah.
Right, I gotcha. Now that's weird because you did write a post, but I can't find it here. Why is that?
Posted one yet for this week or last week.
Pardon me? You hadn't posted anything?
No, not yet.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that it's not someplace anywhere. All right, so now we should be good to go there.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great evening and a great week.